Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, Wealth Notice Post, covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And of course, Saint Edwin has joined us.
Monsignor Martin.
How are you?
Good. We seem to be getting a bit of an echo there at your end. You must have your the line open to the big man above.
Right. Has that stopped it? Is that better?
It has.
All right.
But we could have had a three-way conversation with the big man.
Well, do you want to start it again without the echo?
No, it's all good. Good to go.
All right. Okay. Well, interesting week. A lot going on. Where do we start?
Well, look, there is, Martin, and my week's been absolutely flat out, and I'm doing the tree change. We're doing the tree change, and I have to go and with all the things that are happening with China, with property prices in Sydney, there's just not enough land in Sydney to grow carrots. So doing the tree change, getting a bit of land so I can grow the veggies, because you don't know what's around the corner, Martin. All this chatter with China and issues and all the stuff that Tarek keeps on posting. It's getting a bit scary.
Wow. Okay. So you're up and stumping. Where are you going?
Just where there's more trees, more kangaroos, and less people.
Okay. All right. So does that mean you're going to be you stop doing real estate?
No. Still doing. Just means I've got to get up an hour earlier.
Oh, okay. Oh, very
That's
good.
All.
Oh, well, anything to grow your own carrots, eh?
Well, that's it, Martin. It's veggies. I'm just getting sick and tired of paying $5 for four mandarins at Woolies. I figured start growing your own. And that's the only way to go. So now there's all these talks about the vaccine rollout not happening as quickly, issues with India, being border indefinitely closed. I mean, it's just so much going on. But in all seriousness, Martin, it's just with all the uncertainty that we've got, some property prices are going up, others are going backwards, others are going sideways. There's more incentives piling on. We're going to talk about single parents being able to buy property with a 2% deposit. What does that all mean? We've got the government now pushing for a possible use of $50,000 from your super in order to put that towards a property. Have the comforts now and have the pain later on in your retirement age. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's just an absolute fiasco out there.
Yes, it is. And the more you look at it, the more you realise that the intent to drive prices higher. You see it from the budget, which of course they've already leaked half of it, or at least 3/4 of it before tomorrow, right? The Reserve Bank last week said, well, we're happy to let house prices run because we're just now trying to get employment to be where we want it, which is a much lower level of unemployment, as though those two things somehow are trading off. It's crazy. And of course, the banks are lending like fury. It's amazing. And some of the old behaviours, when they're actually not doing the thorough checks and when they're actually offering much bigger mortgages to people, are all back. So it's like the Royal Commission never happened.
That's right. And it's interesting that, like your conversations with the valuers, likewise, my conversations with valuers is they're starting to get very, very timid. With some of the values that they're seeing on the contracts of purchase of property, and understandably they're fearful of because, as we keep on saying over and over again, these poor bastards only get $260 or thereabouts to do a valuation report, and that valuation report that's given to the banks, the bank could in theory, could come back at them with like a ton of bricks if the market turns the other way, and the banks aren't able to realise or get the money that they loaned out back. So it's interesting times. Interesting, very, very interesting times ahead. But I did catch one of your videos, Martin. Yeah, the one that we talk about the you asked and we delivered. That's going through what you're proposing in that video is something that every person that's looking at buying and even renting for that matter should be looking at the granular aspect of investigating as to what property is doing. And I'll say even renters, because at the end of the day, you could either be paying $600 or $700 a week, or be paying $500 or $400 for very similar property. If you follow those trends that you bring out in that video, in that offering that you have.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Edwin. I've had a flood of people, basically want to access it. And everything use cases include people trying to figure out where the highest levels of stress are, which means that maybe you can get a better value, through to those who are trying to work out whether to invest or buy for their own purposes. And the beauty of the tool is, of course, you can compare a particular postcode with other postcodes, or you can compare a postcode with a region or a state or across whole Australia, right? So you can get some relativities. And the more you start looking at this data, the more powerful it becomes in unpicking what's really going on. And that's what this is really about. This is trying to empower people by providing with them better and more information. And, I think it's a pretty unique offering now, and we're certainly having a number of people pick it up and run with it, which is great.
Oh, look, I think it's an awesome product, Martin. There's only one flaw, which we'll talk about shortly, but it's a tool that it mirrors what we do and what we share with our clients as well, where they come where they're short, by way of the market rising so much in certain areas that in the preferences, areas of preference. But when we start comparing their area of preference to others, whether it be from the North Shore to the Shire or within the same proximity that they would like to be, and we start showing them how much more they could get, how much more of a bang they could get for their buck, as they say. It is rather interesting. And this tool, as I said, I think it's not just a tool for people that are looking at buying, but I dare say it's a powerful tool for somebody that is also looking at renting, or perhaps a group of people. I don't know how you've got it, how you're going to put it out in terms of groups, or as I said, if people are looking at it from a rental, maybe they could just reach out to you directly, because it's so powerful, and people don't realise how much of a benefit just relocating the mind, or reevaluating other areas where they may have heard in the past of that area was bad in 5-10 years ago, blah blah blah. But things have changed so much, and things that will continue to change rapidly. And this is one of the good conversations that we have with our clients, able to help them and assist them in just changing a little bit their mindset. Looking at other regions or areas with not so much with with blinkers on, but with an open mind, and a lot of them have been really happy. And look, it's a powerful tool. But I do have something to say that you forgot to add to that, and that is you need a button there for the WeChat Chatter index, Martin. It's important. We're ahead of the curve.
The WeChat Chat Index, yeah, I like it. Got to think out how we'd actually add that in. I mean, I am adding a bunch of other things. So, for example, net rental return, right? It's going into the model. It'll soon be available, and that's really, as you've seen from the mapping we've done, that's really powerful. And I've got a few other things too. I've also got quite a lot of attitudinal stuff, which I find really interesting. So, where are people more likely to buy or likely to sell? So we might put some of that in. But we'll have to try and get the WeChat chat in. I don't know how we do that.
Look, I think it's powerful. We've been ahead of the curve. It's only now that the mainstream media are talking about the lifting of the eviction moratorium and what's going to happen with that, and what's actually happening with that. I mean, we've been talking about it for weeks now, or over a month. as to what that entails. And the majority of it is around, people that have been renting apartments and how much more of a pain that's going to be. And also with regards to the political stance that Australia has taken with China and vice versa. So the economic trends that are evolving from those positions, or how much of an impact that's going to have on property or specific types of property and where people are looking. So long gone are the days where you can look at property from at a street level. You have to look at it from a global perspective, because if you're not looking at property from a global perspective, well, you're going to be left behind.
No, that's a very good point, Edwin. We have to always contextualise what's going on locally by thinking more broadly. But the eviction thing is really very worrying, right? We've spoken about this already, right? Lots of people getting forced out. I've seen it in my surveys. People trying to jack the rents up for places and trying to effectively get a better recovery. Of course, the reason they're doing that is that many rentals are still underwater. But it's putting huge pressure on people trying to find other cheaper properties to rent, and they're having to move into other parts of the state, other geographies where things are cheaper. It really is a very, very sad state of affairs, and of course people sort of down the range are falling off the log at the bottom, right, because they've got nowhere to move to. So not surprisingly, and it's actually been picked up in a couple of other surveys too, that homelessness is continuing to rise. And of course, in Victoria, they put a lot of homelessness into hotels, and then they've kicked them out again as well. So, I mean, there is a fundamental structural question here about housing. And, to my mind, having a place to live is not an option, right? It should be a human right. And unfortunately, I think we've lost the plot a bit.
Oh, look, the government's lost the plot decades ago. When they started counting all the pennies and all the money that was coming in from the overseas investors. This trend just started becoming bigger and bigger, and the greed just grew from 2012, 2013, when they started diluting the foreign investment regulations as to foreign ownership of property, of residential property, and obviously they started building. The problem is that they started building this crap high-rise developments to house for rentals and so forth, for investors to absorb and to rent it out. And most of them were foreign investors as well. But the problem is that they also lacks the regulations on construction and everything. So we've got an absolute catastrophe. We've got a total abortion at our doorstep with regards to this. And now you can't even say you can't be confident, or the government can't, I don't believe, can be confident and say, well, we'll just start buying back some of these developments and putting people in it, because these things aren't built right, and they're going to have more issues with regards to health problems and everything else. It's that they stopped building all the infrastructure that they should have been concentrating on out west. They obviously to appease their the political donors, and they concentrated on Sydney, as we spoke years ago, with regards to all roads lead to all the infrastructure and all roads lead to Sydney. It's shameful what's being allowed to happen, and if a lot of this infrastructure that they've been talking about for decades got started even 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't believe we would have this issue, because medium density can be built and should have been built out west in order to accommodate a lot of these people that are now finding themselves homeless.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other observation I have, and I've looked at a whole bunch of postcodes, not close into the centre of town, but in that sort of suburban, 20, 30k out, right? And I keep seeing the same thing, where effectively you've got, a plot with a property on it being replaced with 4 or 5 villas on the same plot, or multi, level things too. I did a show the other day, which was just another Melbourne suburb, and it's like you could replay this script pretty much in every postcode around that suburban ring, right? Where effectively the character of the particular area is changing, where effectively the quality of the construction is going down and down and down, and where the very nature of those areas are being fundamentally changed, not necessarily for the better. And yet, people just seem to roll with it and say, well, that's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be like that, folks. These are decisions that people are taking. And, frankly, sometimes I just question whether we really understand what's going on here, because the net result is pretty disastrous.
Look, it is, and there's a further conversions in these areas closer to the city of the older terraces and homes that have never really, that the owners haven't really maintained them properly in order to accommodate their tenants. It's absolutely shameful what we see out there. It's absolutely gobsmacking what we see day in, day out, week in, week out. I was always very vocal for almost 2 decades with regards to the standard of tenancy that's allowed to, the New South Wales government has allowed the owners to keep, or the low standard. In some cases there are no standards. It's absolutely, and then we've got these conversions of the old properties that haven't been maintained and the new that are badly built. It's really going to be catastrophic. Yes, people are making money out of buying property. People are making money out of buying homes, and in the North Shore and the eastern suburbs, and every other suburb where you see these spruikers propagating how the market's booming. But the other end of that scale is the fact that the people that are being disenfranchised. But when you start doing your net return calculations with all these investors that are coming in, it just doesn't make sense, other than it's cheap money that the government's allowed to roll out, and they'll continue to print to prop up this market. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with all these apartments, because the apartment scenario is going to be one major shit show moving forward, and it's slowly it's playing out in front of our eyes, although we're ahead of the curve in a lot of the cases. And as I've been saying that, a lot of the times, and where developers in the spruiking marketing companies have been drip feeding the apartments for sale, and it's given us this false impression that there's only 7,500 apartments for sale in Sydney. You got to be kidding me. As I keep on saying, one of my friends, his company has 2,400 on the books for sale, but they've only listed about 150 to 200 of them. So that's there's a lot going to play out, and there's a lot going to happen. But on the other side of the third point on this, Martin, is the fact that sometimes people have also got to make a decision and be prepared to travel a bit further out. I mean, look, I'm no hero. I'm or not a saint or a hero, but I made a decision. I want to have a bit of land. I want to have a bit of land. I want to be able to have more space and enjoy that. So I've made that decision. We've made the decision to move further out. It's going to take 45 minutes longer to travel into work, to commute in and do the work that we do. But that's just us. The rest of the team are fixed in their areas. But for my personal self, for myself personally, it's going to take me 45-minute extra commuting into the areas where I have to drive into. But in order for me to enjoy the lifestyle that I want now, I've had to make that decision. And people have also got to need to make those sort of decisions and not be so fixed on living in a specific area. We all have a part to play, is what I'm trying to get at. But obviously, the governments from local to state and federal have let us down, and that's from all persuasions of government.
Yeah, and state and federal, of course. And, Michael Zucker was talking up the 2% mortgage, right, for 10,000, single mothers or fathers to be able to get them to buy. And it's interesting how they've set the caps very much in the apartment sector, right? They won't be able to buy anything but apartments. So this is a way of creating another market where effectively we know there's lots of spare property, and we've now got people being encouraged to go and buy them with a 2% mortgage. I mean, it's crazy. When I made 2% mortgage, I mean a 2% deposit, right? So the 18% is being guaranteed by the government.
Yeah, and let's not talk percentages, Martin. Let's talk real figures. And if you're talking about the average apartment across Sydney worth $800,000, I mean, it's a bit high. I think it's about 900,000 now. But let's say let's work it on 800,000. 20% of 800,000, that's $160,000. So you're asked, the government saying that you are going to be able to put up what, $16,000?
2%. Yep.
Yeah, $16,000. That's all you put up. The government's going to put up the rest. And I keep on saying, with regards to any of these initiatives, where the government's going to limit, who's going to be the first mortgagee? When it all goes belly up, who's going to call in the loan? Is the government going to be a first guarantor, or is the bank going to stand in first? Because we know that the government, if it's an unsecured creditor, well, they're just going to do their ass on apartments, and it's going to be the banks that are going to be fighting for it. Now, the other thing there, Martin, is the fact that it's a push for new apartments, but yet there's how many hundreds of thousands are vacant at the moment, and how many more are going to be built, and what's going to happen on that other end of the scale? So it doesn't weigh up, Martin. It really does. All these things that don't point in the right direction for people to only come up with stump up a 2% deposit, and then the rest is going to be put in by the bank, by the government in terms of the deposit, which in actual effect, it means that we, the taxpayers, are really loaning that money. So
yep.
when do we get it back? We don't. We're going to be paying more taxes in order to bail out all these crap policies that the government keeps on pumping out. And why? What, to keep the construction lobbyists fat and healthy, and meanwhile everybody else can go to hell? It's really incredible what they're trying to do. I mean, it's not incredible. It's just simply I'm gobsmacked with these policies. They just don't work, but they just seem to keep on pushing them. And look, with all the stuff that's happening with China. So what's going to happen with all those apartments that have been previously let out to the students, to the long stay, to the tourists that overstay their visas, and as we said, we discussed about with regards to the ghost, with the ghost migrants that end up staying and obviously occupying these properties. I mean, we know there's a lot of vacancies, and they're just going to keep on coming out more and more. So I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. That's all I can say.
Well, let's be clear. This latest initiative will be spun as being helpful to those who, deserve the opportunity to go buy a property. But the main reason for doing it is to support the construction sector, particularly the high-rise construction sector. Just as, Home Builder was effectively helping those, builders who had these home and land packages. They're going to do probably some more of that too. And of course, they've got a broader program of 5%. So yeah, you're right. Taxpayers ultimately are basically indirectly supporting the construction sector, right? And these initiatives are just construction keeper and bank keeper, right? These are nothing to do with sensible housing policies. Neither are they anything to do with helping real people actually get into real property at the right point, at the right price point, but also the right quality point. And just to set that in context, Mascot Tower, right? So they've announced, I think this evening, that they're going to demolish it. It's going to be sold, and people are going to lose 80% of their equity in that transaction. And that was because it was poorly constructed. That was because it wasn't actually supervised properly. And you know, and I know that that's not the only property across the country that's got similar issues. So we have got major structural issues, literally, in the high-rise sector. And now we've got a finance program pointing people in that direction. It's nuts.
It's absolutely crazy. It's insanity. But then again, Martin, since I found my password and now for my crypto, I've now realised that I was losing, I think, $2,000. I mean, I just dabbled in it when my mate told me about it a few years back, as we shared before, and I decided to not to pull the money out after I realised I got my money back. But now I'm actually making money. I mean, go figure. A lot of stuff just doesn't make sense. But this is real clear right down insanity, because if they were serious, as I've said before, and as you and I have said, if the government was really serious, we would get more shit done out west, southwest, northwest, even over the mountains, better infrastructure, better facilities, and really decentralising the stuff that the government's been pushing to build and to maintain and to keep in the CBD and in around the commercial hubs. And if they did that, and if they started working on that years ago when we started talking about it, maybe we'd have something better. And you know what? I don't mind the government giving a heads up, or giving a leg up to single parents and the like, and those in need. I really don't mind it. But point them, as you said, point them in the right direction, not in the wrong direction. You don't point them in the direction where they're just going to drown in debt. Give them some medium density, townhouse developments, villa developments, or the old-fashioned, the old-style 3-story walk-ups, and similar to those, where medium density, where there is a little bit of land for the youngsters to kick a ball, play, run around, have a pet, and like, but not into bloody apartments. I mean, I think from memory, there's about 3,000 on the cards to be built at Mount Druitt, another 5,000 in the northwest, and there's still about 7,000 or so, 5 or 7,000 to be built in Schofields. Absolute insanity, and these are all high-rise developments with not only street level parking, but double, triple basements that most of the second-tier builders don't know how to build.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is, as we've said on many occasions, the whole thing is, it's a bit fixed short term. And I agree with you. There should be the appropriate support for single parent families and those people trying to get into the market. But just throwing these sorts of strategies around without really following through doesn't make a lot of sense. But I've got a broader question. I had somebody ask me the other day, look, that they're thinking of buying a unit in a high-rise apartment, and the apartment itself is pretty good, right? But the question is that they asked me, and I couldn't answer it, was how do you know whether the building itself is actually well constructed or not? And how do you know whether there's flammable cladding on the outside of the building or not? Because, of course, there's no indication.
Well, with regards to cladding, you don't know unless you do a sample test. And this is where people have got to press the strata companies and the strata management companies to provide all the documentation with regard to what position that building is in. Now, as I keep on saying over and over again, most of it, don't leave it up to your conveyancer or your solicitor to look at the strata report, because most of these reports are 200, 300 pages long, and they're not going to read them all. They're not going to read every single detail. Hence the reason why we've got your Mascot Tower scenarios, and people were buying weeks before the initial issues that they faced with Mascot Towers. Now, and look at where they're at now. Obviously, you need to do a historical search and search with regards to who built it. There's go to council. You need to see but the strata company should have a lot of the information that that you should be reading and reading through thoroughly. Look, in most cases, if the apartment's a couple of years old, you start to see well and truly what the rectification work that's required, and you start to see whether or not, and take note whether or not the owners corporation by way of the strata have been maintaining the complex. So you can, by the general appeal, the first impression that you get from a building, you're able to more or less see whether or not the strata company is active and the owners corporation are active. The unfortunate thing at the moment, Martin, is that most of the high-rise developments that have been built over the last 10 years, the majority are probably 70 to 80% investor occupied, and I dare say the majority of them are overseas investors that wouldn't give a rat's ass, as to the condition. All they're concerned about is the rental return, which is coming to naught very soon, and they're going to be, unfortunately, going to be in a position where they're going to have to sell. So, there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that you need to do. From other than the paper, and just take a walk, take a leisurely walk, down through the basements, have a look to see what's there. We've shared some videos in the past. We've shared some photos of some of the issues that I've come across, and they were in the 30% of the better properties that we've shown on our podcast, not wanting to scare too many people as to what's really down there in the basements. And look, and there is a good mate of mine. If people are serious about it, there's a good mate of mine that he operates in the eastern suburbs, and his name's Paul, and he does specializes in strata searches, and he'll give you the ins and outs of just about every apartment complex that was built in the CBD and in the eastern suburbs. This guy's a legend. I'm more than happy to pass on the details to that inquiry if it's in those regions where they're looking at buying.
Okay, well, I'll pass it on. Thank you. And in fact, similar mode, but you've actually got another piece of video, right, relating to a property that, internally probably reasonably good, but if you walk around the corner, it's not quite what you thought it was, right?
Oh, this was a penthouse. This is one of the properties that we got asked to look at for a client, and obviously we won't go into too much detail, but this is a property in Chatswood that was going to go to auction on Saturday, and we had a look at it. Interestingly enough, the open for inspection times were after 5 o'clock, and of late once it's been getting dark rather early. But I did have my trusty torch with me, and I was able to just to spot, and coincidentally in that lobby, as we entered the building, in that lobby the lights weren't functioning properly. And this is just days before the auction. So this actually happened. The pipes that burst in the walls for that unit there burst. We were there. So the auction was on Saturday, and we were there inspecting it on the Thursday. So they'd burst on the Wednesday. Now the agent then quickly changed the auction from on site, because it was actually the penthouse of this complex that we were looking at, and it was rather nice inside, well presented, looked great, very, very spacious, aesthetically looked good. That everything looked good about. Well, when you started looking deeper into it, you started seeing all the issues, and as you're going up the stairwells, you started to see all the paint bubbling up along the corridors of all the water issue, pipe issues in the units. As you were going up to the top level, it was rather interesting. So then they changed the auction from on the at the premises, where agents love to have auctions, because that generates a lot of future interest for potential sellers. And it creates a bit more excitement, because everybody gets deeper emotionally deeper involved with the property itself. But in this case, no way, Jose. It wasn't going to happen at the on site on the penthouse on the terrace, big spacious terrace. It happened in the rooms, and people can see why, because the pipe started bursting, and that was just probably I saw evidence of maybe another 4 that had similar, that may be about to go, but it was just, this whole complex was just riddled with water issues.
And that's another very important object lesson, right? Because water in the wrong place, whether it's coming through pipes or whether it's coming through damp, is very, very destructive, and it's very hard to fix once it goes wrong. And the strata companies can be up for a lot of money trying to do it. And what with damp penetration from above and water pipes that leak and drains that don't work properly, you often see it, don't you?
Oh, look, it's a total mess. It's a total disaster. Especially this complex had it was double brick. So even not only the firewalls were double brick, but it was also the partitioning inside the units were also brick and rendered. So it's not a new complex, but it's one of those complexes. So when shit goes wrong, then it costs a lot more to fix. But it's just the ongoing maintenance. And for our viewers, it wasn't a $600,000-$700,000 penthouse. We're talking about a 1.5 in Chatswood. And it actually went north of 1.55 on the day it actually got sold. But I just hope that the poor bastard that bought it did the research and it wasn't just fooled by the glossy brochures.
Well, or maybe the fact that when they visited it was getting dark and all the bulbs weren't working, so they couldn't see much.
Yeah, well, we probably saw it on the Monday, and these pipes burst on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
extra water feature you didn't expect.
Well, yeah, exactly, like a lot of other apartment complexes that we're seeing. But look, and yet this is where the government wants to place the single parent families. I mean, it's crazy stuff, absolutely crazy stuff. And the building commissioner, although they've identified, I think to date, 40 or 47 complexes that have failed dismally in terms of the specs or the regs. The 47 units or development sites have got issues that they've got to rectify, or they'll never be able to obtain the occupation certificate. But 47 out of how many that have been built, and what about all the ones that have already been built in the 217 buildings that have been identified in Sydney alone with flammable cladding and every other issue? It's just insanity, Martin.
And the point there about that list is not publicly available, right? So nobody quite knows which ones. I mean, there's a few rumours going around, but you can't find a definitive list anywhere, which is my point about if you're thinking of buying an apartment in a relatively new building, you've got to do your own due diligence. You've got to find out whether it's got flammable cladding, whether it hasn't. It's very hard to do. So very important that people do the due diligence. And it underscores what we keep saying, Edwin, isn't it? That you can't take anything as just assumed. You've got to actually validate it. You've actually got to do the work. You've actually got to get the information to be able to make good decisions. And you can still buy and buy reasonably and buy well, but it's also a very high risk that you can buy something which is not what you thought it was, will actually be very, very detrimental to your financial future. Look at Mascot Tower as a great example. Well, not a great example, but as an object lesson in what can go wrong. And, be cautious, be careful, do the work, and ask that extra question, eh?
Well, that's right. And look, the agents do have a duty of care, and they do have to disclose material fact. So, and let's face it, it's not only properties that you're looking at buying, but also from a rental perspective, whether it be a residential tenancy, or whether it be a commercial tenancy in the mixed-use development. You've got to ask these questions. What if any issues may have the previous tenants may have had, or have been reported in apartments. As I say, it's really not just a buyer's issue, but it's also a rental or a renter's issue as well. And look, agents have to, by law, have to disclose material fact, and you can press them on that. And if they don't want to give it to you, well, then there's your answer.
Yeah, and get it in writing, so you've got it there subsequent, right?
No, that's right. Everything's got to be reduced to writing in order for you to be able to have a leg to stand on when and if you have to follow it up in the future.
Well, Edwin, a very important conversation again tonight, and hopefully some very important pointers for people thinking about property. And I want to give you a pointer with regard to planting carrots, right? You have to dig deep, right? And you have to make sure that the seeds go in the right way.
I'm really going to have to get some go to Google or watch some videos and that. But look, I just hope I'm just hoping I'd get some good produce and I'll share it with you, Martin. How's that?
Sounds like a plan. Well, good luck, and I'll look forward to connecting up with you. Hopefully next week if we can do it, assuming broadband works.
Oh yeah, look, I'm sure there's a few gum trees up there, so I'll climb up one of those and I'll have a coat hanger. I might just every now and again I might lose my balance. Particularly if I'm in the top branch. As long as it's not blowing a gale, I should be okay.
Okay, I look forward to it, Edwin. Thanks very much once again, and take care. Good luck.
All right, mate. Looking forward to next week. Cheers.